There comes a moment in your life when the noise around you gets louder than the voice within you. Everyone wants something from you. Everyone has an opinion about you. Everyone has a version of who you should be. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your whole life living for expectations that were never assigned to you. But hear this clearly. 2026 is not the year you chase approval. It's the year you reclaim alignment. When you focus on yourself, not selfishly but strategically, your life doesn't just improve, it transforms. There comes a season when your growth starts making people uncomfortable, and the moment you rise, they start asking you to explain yourself. Explain why you changed. Explain why you're no longer available. Explain why you don't laugh at the same jokes, tolerate the same disrespect, or accept the same limitations. But let me tell you something straight and strong. Anyone who demands an explanation for your growth was comfortable with your confinement. They liked you better when you were tired, unsure, and easy to manage. They benefited from your silence. They benefited from your doubt. They benefited from the version of you that didn't know who you were. You don't owe anyone a speech for becoming who you were always meant to be. Every time you explain your growth to the wrong people, you hand them power they were never supposed to have. You slow yourself down, trying to make others comfortable with a transformation they were never assigned to understand. Growth doesn't come with a committee vote. Purpose doesn't require public approval. And destiny does not pause because somebody feels left behind. If you keep explaining, you'll keep shrinking. If you keep justifying, you'll keep delaying. But when you decide to move without explanation, something breaks open in your life. Some people were only assigned to the earlier version of you. They were seasonal, not permanent. They were there to teach you something, not stay forever. And when you outgrow a season, you don't negotiate with it, you exit it. But insecurity will whisper, if you don't explain yourself, they'll misunderstand you. Let them. Misunderstanding is cheaper than self-betrayal. You were not created to be understood by everyone. You were created to be obedient to the call on your life. Here's the truth. Most people don't want to hear. Not everyone clapping for you is rooting for you. Some people only celebrate you as long as you stay beneath them. They applaud your potential but resist your progress. They like the idea of you rising, just not higher than where they are. And the moment you start walking in confidence, they call it arrogance. The moment you set boundaries, they call you selfish. The moment you choose peace, they say you've changed. No, you've awakened. You didn't change. You finally stopped pretending. You have to understand this if you're going to focus on yourself in 2026. Explaining drains energy that should be invested in building. While you're talking, someone else is working. While you're clarifying, someone else is creating. While you're defending your decision, someone else is stepping fully into theirs. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Let your results speak. Let your consistency speak. Let your elevation speak so loudly that explanations become unnecessary. There will be people who try to pull you into conversations designed to keep you emotionally tied to your old self. They'll say, you used to be like this, or remember when you didn't mind? That's not nostalgia, that's resistance. They're mourning a version of you that no longer exists. And you cannot resurrect who you were just to make others comfortable. Growth requires funerals. Some relationships have to be buried so purpose can breathe. Hear me clearly. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need validation to evolve. You don't need applause to obey what's stirring inside you. When you stop explaining your growth, you stop giving people the ability to vote on your future. You stop asking for approval from people who never had authority in the first place. You stop shrinking to fit rooms you were meant to outgrow. And let me say this, some people don't want clarity, they want control. They ask questions not to learn, but to limit you. They say, why are you doing this? When what they really mean is, why are you leaving me behind? But you cannot carry everyone with you into the next chapter. Elevation requires separation. Focus requires distance. Destiny demands courage. If you're always explaining, you're always defending. And if you're always defending, you're never free. Freedom comes when you trust that the same power that called you will sustain you. You don't need to convince anyone when you're convinced yourself. Once you're anchored in who you are becoming, outside opinions lose their grip. This is the year you stop rehearsing your reasons. The year you stop shrinking your dreams so they fit other people's comfort zones. The year you stop over-communicating with people who under-support you. You don't owe access to everyone who asks for it. You don't owe updates to everyone who watches you. Privacy is power. Silence is strength. Focus is fuel. Let them talk while you build. Let them question while you become. Let them misunderstand while you transform. Because when the fruit shows up, explanations won't be necessary. When the doors open, opinions won't matter. When you arrive, nobody will ask how. You'll be the evidence. And here is the final truth you must carry with you. You don't explain elevation, you live it. Let me talk to you about what really separates the life you keep dreaming about from the life you keep waking up to. It's not talent because you've got that. It's not potential because you're full of it. And it's not even opportunity because opportunities pass through everybody's life at some point. The difference is discipline. Discipline is the quiet decision you make when nobody is watching. Discipline is what shows up when motivation packs its bags and leaves you standing there alone. You don't become who you want to be by what you feel. You become who you are, disciplined enough to obey. See, feelings are loud, but they are unreliable. They'll tell you to start today and quit tomorrow. They'll get you excited at the beginning and exhausted in the middle. Feelings love beginnings, but discipline carries you through endings. If you're waiting to feel ready, you'll be waiting the rest of your life. Growth doesn't come when you feel like it. It comes when you commit to doing what needs to be done, even when everything in you says, stop. Discipline is not punishment. It's proof that you believe your future is worth protecting. Every boundary you set, every habit you build, every time you say no to what feels good in order to say yes to what is good, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. And the problem is not that people don't want change. The problem is they don't want the consistency required to sustain it. Everybody wants the harvest, but few people want the routine of planting, watering, and waiting. You don't need a dramatic turnaround to change your life. You need daily decisions, small ones, repeated ones, uncelebrated ones, the kind nobody claps for, the kind nobody reposts, the kind that looks boring on the outside but builds power on the inside. Discipline is choosing structure over chaos. It's choosing progress over excuses. It's deciding that your future deserves more effort than your comfort. And hear this clearly. Discipline will expose what you truly value. You always make time for what matters to you. You always find energy for what you prioritize. If something keeps getting postponed, it's not because you can't do it, it's because something else is running your life. Discipline is how you take the steering wheel back. It's how you stop drifting and start directing. There will be days when you don't feel inspired, days when your mind is heavy, your body is tired, and your heart feels uncertain. Those are the days discipline matters most, because consistency on the hard days creates confidence on the easy ones. Every time you show up anyway, you teach yourself that you can be trusted. And self-trust is the foundation of self-respect. You cannot build a strong life while constantly breaking promises to yourself. Let me say this the way you need to hear it. If you don't control your habits will control you. What you repeatedly do will eventually decide who you become. Discipline is not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things long enough for them to change you. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. And if your systems are weak, your results will be inconsistent no matter how big your dreams are. Stop waiting on motivation to save you. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a resident. Motivation comes when things are exciting. Discipline stays when things are exhausting. And the life you're praying for requires something stronger than excitement. It requires endurance. Endurance is built through discipline. That's how chains break. That's how cycles end. That's how patterns that followed you for years finally lose their grip. Discipline will cost you. It will cost you late night scrolling. It will cost you unhealthy attachments. It will cost you comfort, excuses, and sometimes even relationships that thrive on your lack of structure. But what it gives you in return is worth far more. It gives you clarity. It gives you confidence. It gives you momentum. It gives you the power to say, I don't feel like it, but I'm doing it anyway. This is how you focus on yourself without becoming selfish. You are not neglecting others. You are preparing yourself. You are not being rigid. You are being responsible. You are not isolating. You are investing. Discipline is an act of love towards your future self. It is you saying, I refuse to let temporary discomfort steal permanent progress. And understand this, discipline creates F. The more disciplined you become, the less controlled you are by impulses, emotions, and distractions. Discipline sharpens your focus. It clears your vision. It aligns your actions with your assignment. When your life is undisciplined, everything feels urgent. When your life is disciplined, everything becomes intentional. So stop asking if it feels good and start asking if it's moving you forward. Stop negotiating with the version of you that wants comfort and start listening to the version of you that wants growth. Because the bridge between who you are and who you are meant to be is not built with wishes. It's built with discipline, one decision at a time. Let me slow this down and speak directly to your life, because if you don't learn how to protect your mind, everything else you're trying to build will stay fragile. You can have talent, vision, discipline, and opportunity, but if your mind is under constant attack, you'll sabotage what you prayed for. The battlefield you're fighting on in this season is not outside of you, it's within you. And what you allow into your mind will eventually decide how far you go. Your mind was never designed to carry endless noise. It was created to hold vision, wisdom, creativity, and direction. But many people are exhausted not because they're doing too much, but because they're consuming too much. Too many opinions, too many voices, too much comparison, too much access. And then they wonder why they feel confused, unfocused, and emotionally drained. You can't think clearly in a crowded mind. What you listen to, what you watch, what you entertain, and who you allow to speak into your life are shaping your inner world every single day. You don't have to agree with negativity for it to affect you. You just have to stay around it long enough. Fear is contagious. Doubt is loud. Chaos is persuasive. And if you don't guard your mind intentionally, it will become a storage unit for thoughts that were never meant to live there. Some of you are trying to focus on yourself while feeding on content that constantly tells you that you're behind, not enough, or late. Every scroll turns into a comparison. Every conversation turns into a complaint. Every environment reinforces survival instead of growth. And slowly, without realizing it, your confidence erodes. Your joy diminishes. Your vision gets blurry. Not because you lack potential, but because your mind is overstimulated and underprotected. You have to make a decision in this season. Not everything deserves your attention. Just because something is loud doesn't mean it's important. Just because someone has access to you doesn't mean they should have influence over you. Your peace is too expensive to be cheap with your focus. You cannot build a new life while constantly revisiting old mental patterns. Protecting your mind means learning when to disconnect. Silence is not emptiness, it's clarity. When you create space away from noise, you give your thoughts room to breathe. That's where vision sharpens. That's where wisdom speaks. That's where you remember who you are without everybody else's expectations sitting on your shoulders. Some breakthroughs don't come from adding more. They come from removing distractions. Let me be honest with you. Some conversations are draining because they don't lead anywhere. They recycle the same problems, the same bitterness, the same excuses. And if you stay in them long enough, you'll start thinking that stagnation is normal. It's not. You have to be brave enough to change the subject, change the environment, or change the access. You can love people and still limit how much they influence your thinking. Your mind needs boundaries just like your life does. Everything doesn't need a response. Everything doesn't. T need a reaction. Everything doesn't need an explanation. When you react to everything, you give away control. When you pause, you regain power. Emotional maturity is knowing that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Peace grows where restraint lives. And hear this clearly, healing and focus require honesty. Some of the thoughts you're battling didn't start with you. They were planted by past experiences, disappointments, betrayals, and failures. If you don't confront them, they'll quietly control your decisions. But when you name them, challenge them, and replace them with truth, their grip weakens. You don't need to be ashamed of what hurt you, but you do need to be responsible for what you carry forward. Protecting your mind also means feeding it intentionally. Just like your body responds to what you eat, your mind responds to what you consume. If all you feed it is negativity, it will produce anxiety. If all you feed it is fear, it will produce hesitation. But if you feed it wisdom, encouragement, and truth, it will produce clarity and courage. You cannot starve your mind and expect it to fight for your future. This is why focus requires discipline. You don't accidentally have a strong mind. You build one. You choose what to let in. You choose what to dwell on. You choose what to release. And some days that choice will feel uncomfortable because chaos has become familiar. But familiar doesn't mean healthy. Growth often feels lonely before it feels peaceful. There will be moments when protecting your mind looks like stepping back, like logging out, like saying no, like choosing rest over reaction. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. A calm mind can hear direction. A guarded mind can sustain vision. A focused mind can execute purpose without burning out. If you want your life to change, you have to start thinking differently about access. Not everyone deserves to know your plans. Not every emotion deserves to be followed. Not every thought deserves to stay. You are allowed to curate your inner world. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to choose clarity over chaos. Because once your mind is guarded, your focus sharpens, your confidence strengthens, and your future finally has room to unfold. Let me speak to the places you don't talk about, the areas you learned to smile through, the wounds you buried because life didn't slow down long enough for you to feel them. Healing is not weakness, but many people were taught that if you keep moving, keep achieving, keep producing, the pain will eventually disappear. It doesn't. It just hides. And what you don't heal, you carry. What you carry, you leak. And what you leak eventually touches every area of your life. Some of you are strong on the outside, but fractured on the inside. You learned how to survive, how to adapt, how to function while bleeding. You became dependable, responsible, productive, but never whole. And now you're wondering why certain patterns keep repeating, why certain relationships keep breaking the same way, why success doesn't feel as satisfying as you thought it would. It's because unhealed pain doesn't disappear when you level up. It follows you into every new season until you face it. Healing is not about reliving the pain. It's about releasing its control. It's about telling the truth to yourself instead of minimizing what hurt you just to appear strong. Some of you were disappointed deeply, abandoned unexpectedly, betrayed quietly, or overlooked repeatedly. And instead of processing it, you told yourself, I'm fine, and kept going. But strength that never stops to heal eventually becomes exhaustion. You cannot focus on yourself while carrying unresolved pain because pain constantly pulls your attention backward, shapes your reactions. It influences your decisions. It makes you defensive where you should be discerning and guarded where you should be open. Unhealed wounds don't make you careful. They make you reactive. And reaction is the enemy of focus. Let me say this plainly. Healing is preparation. You are not falling behind because you're taking time to heal. You are positioning yourself to sustain what's coming next. Some doors didn't open before because you weren't ready to carry what was on the other side. Some delays were not denial, they were protection. You were being spared from bleeding into places that required stability. There are people you lost not because you weren't good enough, but because you were growing beyond the version of you that tolerated dysfunction. And instead of grieving properly, you blamed yourself. You questioned your worth. You internalized rejection. That's pain talking. Healing teaches you to separate what happened from who you are. You can acknowledge the wound without letting it define you. Healing also requires humility. It means admitting that you don't have all the answers, that willpower alone isn't enough, that some things require reflection, support, and time. Healing doesn't make you fragile, it makes you honest. And honesty is strength under control. When you heal, you stop pretending. And when you stop pretending, you stop performing for people who never truly saw you. Some of you learn to cope by becoming emotionally unavailable. Others learn to overgive, overextend, and overfunction so you wouldn't have to feel. But coping is not healing. Coping keeps you alive. Healing makes you whole. Coping helps you survive the storm. Healing teaches you how to rebuild after it's past. And hear this carefully, you don't heal to revisit the past. You heal so the past doesn't sabotage your future. Healing is not about staying stuck in what happened. It's about breaking its authority over your tomorrow. When you heal, you stop making decisions out of fear. You stop choosing familiarity over fulfillment. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy and chaos with passion. There will be moments when healing feels lonely because not everyone will understand why you're pulling back, slowing down, or saying no. But isolation for restoration is different from isolation for fear. You're not hiding, you're repairing, you're not withdrawing, you're rebuilding. And what you're doing quietly will save you loudly later. Healing also requires boundaries. Some people cannot walk with you while you're healing because they benefit from you being broken. They prefer you overgiving, over-apologizing, and overcompensating. When you start healing, you stop accepting crumbs. You stop negotiating your worth. And that will make some people uncomfortable. Let them be uncomfortable. Your healing is not up for debate. You don't heal overnight. You heal in layers, one realization at a time, one honest conversation at a time, one decision to choose yourself at a time. Some days you'll feel strong and some days you'll feel exposed. Both are part of the process. Healing doesn't mean you never feel pain again. It means pain no longer controls your direction. And this is where it connects to everything else you're building. Discipline without healing becomes rigidity. Focus without healing becomes obsession. Success without healing becomes empty. But when healing is present, everything else aligns. Your discipline becomes balanced. Your focus becomes peaceful. Your growth becomes sustainable. So don't rush this part. Don't shame yourself for needing it. Don't pretend you're okay. Just to keep up appearances. The strongest thing you can do in this season is face what hurt you with courage and compassion. Because when you heal, why? Don't just recover. You rise prepared, grounded, and unshakable. Heal now, so the future doesn't have to pay for what the past broke. Let me talk to you about the weight you've been carrying that you were never meant to hold. The weight of waiting for permission, waiting for applause, waiting for someone to look at you and say, now you're ready. Too many people are standing still, not because they lack vision, but because they're waiting for validation to give them courage. And if you keep waiting on approval, you will miss the very moment you were created for. Vision does not ask to be understood before it moves. Vision moves first, and understanding catches up later. There is something inside you that was placed there before anyone had an opinion about you, before anyone applauded you, before anyone doubted you. And the tragedy is not that people don't believe in you. The tragedy is when you start borrowing their doubt and calling it wisdom. You start editing your dreams so they don't offend anyone. You start shrinking your voice so it doesn't make anyone uncomfortable. You start delaying obedience because you want consensus. But destiny does not wait for agreement. Validation is addictive. It feels good to be affirmed. It feels safe to be supported. But if you need constant reassurance to move forward, you'll never move far. People will clap for you when your vision benefits them. They will encourage you when your dream fits their understanding. But the moment your calling stretches beyond their comfort, the applause fades. And if applause is your fuel, you'll stop right where the clapping stops. Vision often feels lonely because it's given ahead of its time. You see what others don't see yet. You feel urgency where others feel indifference. You sense direction when others see risk. That doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're early, and early often feels isolated. But isolation does not mean abandonment. It means you're being prepared to lead instead of follow. Stop letting people who are confused about their own lives confuse you about yours. Stop letting hesitation from others silence clarity within you. Just because someone doesn't see it doesn't mean it's not real. Just because they don't understand it doesn't mean it won't work. Some people won't recognize your calling until they see the results, and by then you won't need their validation anyway. Walking in vision means you move before the evidence shows up. You build before the crowd arrives. You obey before the outcome is guaranteed. Vision is not logical, it's directional. It doesn't explain every step, it reveals the next one. And too many people miss their moment because they demand full clarity when all that's required is faithfulness to the next move. There will be seasons when obedience makes you look foolish. When you step out and nothing happens right away. When you commit and the numbers don't grow. When you show up and nobody notices. That's where most people quit. Not because the vision failed, but because validation didn't come fast enough. But vision matures in obscurity. Roots grow in darkness before fruit ever shows in the light. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You need to believe in what was entrusted to you. Confidence doesn't come from being affirmed by others. It comes from being anchored in purpose. When you know why you're doing what you're doing, outside opinions lose their power. You stop asking, do you like it? And start asking, is this aligned? And alignment will carry you when approval disappears. Let me tell you something freeing. You are not called to be liked. You are called to be effective, and effectiveness often disrupts comfort. When you start walking in vision, people will question you, critique you, and sometimes distance themselves from you. Not because you're wrong, but because your obedience confronts their hesitation. Your courage exposes their fear, and instead of changing, they try to convince you to stop. This is where focus on yourself becomes essential. You cannot walk in vision while constantly checking for approval. You cannot build while constantly explaining yourself. Vision requires movement, not meetings. Action, not arguments. Progress, not permission. When you know what you've been called to do, you don't need to announce it. You demonstrate it. And understand this, validation is temporary, but vision is generational. Applause fades, but purpose endures. If you trade vision for validation, you may gain popularity, but lose impact. If you choose vision, you may lose approval, but you gain fulfillment. And fulfillment is far more valuable than being liked. There will come a moment when the very people who doubted you will ask how you did it. Not because they suddenly believed, but because results have a way of silencing critics. But by then, your confidence won't be rooted in their questions. It will be grounded in your consistency. You didn't wait to be validated. You walked until the vision spoke for itself. So stop standing at the door of your future waiting for someone else to open it. You already have the key. Walk in vision, even when your hands are shaking, even when your voice trembles, even when the room is quiet, because vision doesn't need applause to move forward. It needs obedience. Let me lift your eyes beyond the moment you're standing in, because what you're doing right now is bigger than your comfort, bigger than your fears, and bigger than your personal goals. When you focus on yourself the right way, when you heal, discipline, guard your mind, and walk in vision, you are not just changing your life, you are shifting generations. Some of you thought this was about success, peace, or stability, but it's deeper than that. Your focus is rewriting a story that started long before you were born. There are cycles that didn't start with you, but they're trying to end with you. Patterns of fear, lack, emotional absence, broken relationships, inconsistent discipline, and unhealed trauma have been passed down so quietly that they feel normal. You didn't choose them, but you inherited them. And now life has positioned you at a crossroads where what you tolerate will teach the next generation what to accept. When you focus on yourself, you are deciding what stops here. Some of the resistance you feel is not just personal, it's historical. You are fighting battles your parents never had the tools to fight. You are asking questions nobody asked before. You are doing emotional, mental, and spiritual work that previous generations didn't know how to name. That's why it feels heavy sometimes. That's why it feels lonely. You're not just building forward, you're breaking backward. When you choose discipline, you're teaching those who come after you that consistency is possible. When you choose healing, you're teaching them that pain doesn't have to define identity. When you protect your mind, you're showing them that peace is not weakness. When you walk in vision without validation, you're proving that courage can exist without applause. And when you focus on yourself, you create a blueprint others can follow without even realizing it. This is why distraction is dangerous. Distraction doesn't just delay your progress, it delays everyone connected to you. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you interrupt a cycle. Every time you choose clarity over chaos, you create a new standard. Every time you say, it ends with me, you are quietly authoring a different future. And let me be clear, focusing on yourself is not selfish when it positions you to serve at a higher level. You are not isolating to abandon people. You are aligning so you can impact them without bleeding on them. You are not stepping back because you don't care. You are stepping back because you care enough to become whole. A healed person doesn't harm others to cope. A focused person doesn't drag others into confusion. A disciplined person creates safety wherever they go. Some of you have been carrying guilt for choosing growth, as if your progress is a betrayal of where you came from. It's not. It's an answer. You honor your past not by repeating its pain, but by refusing to pass it on. You don't disrespect your roots by growing. You fulfill their sacrifice by becoming what they couldn't. Your elevation is not rejection, it's redemption. You may not see the full impact of your focus right away. Seeds rarely announce themselves when they're planted. But years from now, someone will live differently because you chose courage. Someone will love healthier because you healed. Someone will think bigger because you broke a limitation. Someone will rest easier because you learned how to protect your peace. And they may never know all the battles you fought to get there, but the freedom they walk in will be your legacy. This is why you can't afford to quit when it gets uncomfortable. This is why you can't afford to go back to familiar dysfunction. This is why you can't afford to numb yourself with distractions when focus is required. What you're building has weight. What you're becoming has reach. What you're deciding now will echo long after you're gone. There will be moments when it feels like too much responsibility, when you wish you could just live for yourself without thinking about impact. But understand this, you were built for this weight. You were chosen because you could handle it. You were positioned because you had the capacity to break what others normalize. And the very pressure you feel is proof that what you're carrying matters. So when you focus on yourself, do it with intention, not just to feel better, but to live better, not just to succeed, but to sustain, not just to rise, but to lift the ceiling for everyone connected to you. This is not a small season. This is a defining one. Because when you focus on yourself and choose growth over comfort, you don't just change your life, you change the future. So step into 2026 with intention, not distracted, not divided, not depleted, but focus. Focused on your purpose, focused on your healing, focused on becoming the person your future is waiting for. Let this be the year you stop surviving and start building. The year you stop reacting and start leading. Because when you finally focus on yourself, you won't recognize your life a year from now. And that's exactly the point.